Let's get this live going. Make sure we're even on our camera here. Yeah. Well, we'll see who ends up popping on here as we go about this. Man, it feels beautiful out here. It's awesome. But if you're watching this after the fact, I'm just waiting for people to go ahead and hop on. We got one person. Let's see who that is. But so I figured I would go ahead and what's up, Craig? I figured I would actually take the time to talk about the samurai build. What's up? What's up? Because I wanted to go ahead and do this and do a live for it, because in the video with the YouTube challenges, we can't really like take a whole bunch of time to do my normal talking that I do and explanations on a lot of things. And I really wanted to give you all the thought process and breakdown for how I went about thinking about this, designing it, the materials I used, stuff like that, and thought process that I had to think through in the process of being able to create this with only a few pieces of material. And there was a lot of thought process that went into it. So I figured I'd go ahead, hop on here, do a live, and actually explain the sword, why I did it, reasons behind it. It's a little more in depth than whenever I did the video. So of course, like I said just a second ago, when it comes to the YouTube challenge videos, I don't typically talk a lot. They're not super educational because most of them are us just putting the video out for the challenge and doing all that stuff, compared to my normal content where I like to explain things. So I'm going to do that in this live stream, and I'll let y'all go ahead and ask questions and stuff like that, and I'll try and answer those as we go through. So, of course, materials that I used for this, Willys Jeep Leaf Spring. So the blade itself is all Willys Jeep Leaf Spring, and it is one of my favorite stills. But whenever I set out to do this, again, I forged a couple of other projects, and I was thinking, all right, I'm going to do one thing. So if y'all watched, I think it's Blackbeard projects, he did these comma things. Y'all know that I was planning on possibly making one of those. And yeah, it's 5160. So Willys Jeep Leaf Springs. And whenever I forge them and everything like that, I leave the actual green paint up, because the cool thing about those old school Willys Jeeps is what they did was they put them together and then they just painted like the whole damn thing green. The axles were green, the leaf springs were green, literally everything green. And I've got a couple of sets of those Willys Jeep Leaf Springs, and I've made really cool, I've made swords and things like that out of them. And I've gone out and I have trimmed branches off trees and done everything like that. And I will be trimming branches with this right here. I will actually be doing stuff like that. This is not just going to be something that just gets set to the side. I'm going to use the hell out of it. But whenever I was thinking through this project, I was like, okay, I know a lot of people are going to make katanas. I know that's going to be a thing. Katanas are going to be a thing. And they're either going to make a katana or a wakizashi or a tanto. And I knew that was going to be the jam for this particular challenge. And I did not want to go that route. Originally, whenever we first did the challenge, I was like, I'm going to forge the profile of katana. But I didn't want y'all to have to watch just katana video, katana video, katana video, katana video, and katana video. I wanted to do something that was me. So I branched out from that and decided to base my design, like I said in the video, on the flow of a Quaken. Now, I've made a Quaken before, made a couple of them, and I really like that flow that comes with them. And a few things that you didn't get to see in the actual video. So the handle, it's wide here, and then it's wide there. So it actually tapers both ways. So this is wider, but slightly narrower. This is narrower, slightly wider. So whenever you're gripping it, this indexes exactly how it's going to index. Like puts your cutting edge forward each time. This you can actually grab with your palm. So whenever you are coming forward and coming back, your hands are two different angles. So knuckles out here, this one is slightly different. And it lets you flow a lot better. And my ankle is doing a lot better. Now I just have like a big old Band-Aid on it. So I got the stitches out yesterday. I just got to be careful on it. I can't lift a bunch of stuff. If I tear it back open, my doctor's going to whoop my ass. So I've got steri strips over the whole entire cut now, and then the bandage over that. And I just got to keep it clean and let it heal until about Tuesday. Tuesday, I can start, doing more active things with it. It wasn't a big deal when I had the stitches in it because they were at least doing their thing. There's no stitches in it now, so if I screw it up, it's because I screwed it up. But like I said, when it comes to the sword, this right here, I wanted to think through how I had the handle, and this whole we do it live. What's up, Pinto? So when it comes to me thinking through this whole entire process, making this sword, some people might not think there's a whole lot to it. Looking at it, there's not a whole bunch of complicated components compared to some of the people that did katanas, where they have like their Suba, Habaki, all the little spacers and all that stuff. Well, whenever I was thinking through this build, again, I wanted it sleek, simple. I wanted it to look really cool. I wanted it to feel comfortable. But some of that came at a price with the thought process. So whenever you do something like this, where that sticks out, you've got to almost finish your scales before you put them on. Because you can't get in here and do a bunch of sanding without screwing up that satin finish that's on there. One of the things about satin finishes is if your satin finish is going one direction and you accidentally put a scuff the other direction, you will see it. It stands out like a sore thumb. So the overall length for this is 33 inches. I think the blade itself, is 18 inches. So 18-inch blade, it's 33 inches overall length. And is it a super long sword? Nope, but it's pretty damn long. I mean, especially whenever you compare it to like the Bolo, it's quite a bit bigger than, this is a very big knife. This is bigger. So whenever I sat down to think about this, if y'all saw the video, I actually took and I drew out what my design was going to be whenever I just had the profile forged. And if you take this and put it on top of there, it is almost exactly what I drew out. I'm going to see if I can I'll take y'all off here for a second. All right. So it is almost exactly what I drew out right there. And that's what I wanted to do. That was before I did anything. That's before I started making anything. Whew. I want you with me during the zombie apocalypse. I want me with me too. But of course I want you too, because you can make the fishing baits. And of course the knives and everything too. But when it comes down to it, thinking through the whole thought process of what needed to be done and what steps, this guard area right here, this is pinned into place. So whenever you go through and you do that, you got to think through doing your bevels, doing a heat treat, doing everything in its right steps. Because once I did the heat treat process, I wasn't going to be able to drill through this, because if I put a torch here to try and anneal this down and then drill through it, that's too close to the blade. So I had to do a certain amount of the bevels and everything like that, and then figure out exactly where my plunge line was going to be to kind of marry it up to the angle of this, and then go through and make this whole entire thing. You know, if you remember, whenever I showed it in the video, this is cut off from this piece of angle iron right here. And the reason behind that is I didn't want to do your normal like Hibaki Suba thing, partially because whenever you do that, it comes across the spine here. So it actually wraps all the way around, and I didn't want it to stick up from here. So if I didn't want it to stick up from here, then I would have had to have recessed the tang a little bit. And if I did that, I would then have to change the profile of the handle or make it a hidden tang. I didn't want it to be a hidden tang. I wanted it to be a full tang all the way through. So full tang sword. Does that make it way stronger than like your hidden tang swords and stuff like that for the katanas and everything? No, it doesn't really. Those katanas are meant to be, you know, fight and hit against steel and all kinds of stuff all the time. But I wanted a full tang. I wanted to have this in there because I thought that it was a little bit more striking. And again, I didn't want this to bulge out at all. It bulges out a little bit here for that wraparound, but it flows as you step down here. Now, I'm super happy with how the guard turned out because, you know, again, that is just angle iron, and we were able to do something that cool. And if you look at how tight the fit up is on there, there is no space or gap or anything like that. And the biggest thing that I had to think through with that was I've never actually done that. I've never wrapped a guard around, had to forge it into place, do all that stuff, get everything square. So what helped me was I have a bunch of this leaf spring material. So what I did, again, put it in the vise and then folded it around the rest of the way. My wife, Nisha, who's what would be your personal dream challenge build theme? We'll get into that in just a second. She, of course, helped me, you know, with extra spare hands and all that stuff in the process. But it was just trying to, again, think through how I was going to wrap that around, how I was going to get it in place, how I was going to keep everything even, and then also keep everything square. You know, one of the hard parts about doing this right here is this angle. So basically, this is not square with this because it tapers all the way down. So trying to figure out how I want this line right here to transition into the handle, thinking through squaring things up, that I want it square to the spine, that I want it square to the belly. What I ended up doing was splitting the center and actually squaring it, and then again splitting that. So I had an X. So from where I put my little right angle on here, it came down this way. This one came down this way. I picked where the X crossed over, and that's where I drew my line. So I didn't realize how was it. Yeah, you were in that shot. So again, a lot of it was thinking through the steps. And whenever I started making it, I started building it, I started doing that process, it was, okay, I need to pause for a second and do this. I need to pause for a second and do that. I need to pause for a second and do this. No, that's not the right way. I'm going to do this. And I just forced myself to go ahead and keep going through it. And what didn't help, again, was the whole ankle injury. So I tried to kind of edit it out of the video, but I'm seriously, whenever I'm doing the forging on this, I've got like a cane out of the picture, and whenever I'm going through and I'm walking around the anvil, I'm like dragging my leg around like I'm a zombie. So I'm just sitting here, I'm like, okay, let's get out of the camera angle. As soon as I'm out of the camera angle, I'm like, doing all that stuff because I couldn't really bend it, couldn't really do any of that stuff. But the nice thing is, one of the things that I realized is I could put almost all my weight on this leg whenever I was forging. So I'm holding my tongs and I'm pretty much here and I'm swinging through over here. So I don't have to put a ton of weight over here. So it's kind of an interesting way to get used to being able to swing, because I typically use most of my body so that I'm not just using my shoulder and my elbow to do the swinging. I drop down and I hammer so that I can actually use my body as its force, especially whenever I'm moving something like this, because that's all 5160 forged to profile. I only took a 1/16 of an inch off of the whole entire profile whenever I was at the 2x72. So this is what I forged. Whenever I drew the profile on here, the actual profile of the blade, I didn't go in and erase any of that. So whenever I put it down on the workbench, I drew the outline of it. All I did was make the line solid. That was it. So it was actually forged to the profile that I wanted. The only thing that I needed to do was a little bit of cleanup here just to make sure that all of that was nice and square to be able to do the guard. But really, it was just taking my time and forging it out and doing that process. Now, I hate a lot of people that that tell me I need to get a press and a power hammer. I plan on building a press. I've been talking to a few people, and I definitely want to do that. Thank you, Chip. It's one of those things where I'm going to be doing a press. I'm probably going to be doing a lighter power hammer, but all of this is an evolution. Everything that I'm doing right now is an evolution. I want to get super confident and super comfortable with swinging the hammer, with what the hammer does to the steel, before I start doing press and power hammer and all that stuff. So all the blades that I'm making right now that I'm forging, it's all focusing on being able to do better. And the coolest thing that I can do is, you know how you have like game day footage? You know how you played sports, played football, you played those sports and stuff like that, and you have game day footage. You sit there, you watch yourself, you threw the football, and you're going, man, my form was off. Or all your, how you have everything laid out with your team, everything like that, who's running where, all those things. Having that game day footage really, really helps to correct things that you're doing wrong. I have that with the YouTube videos. So the whole entire time, I'm sitting there and I'm editing my video, and I get to see myself, how I'm forging, whenever steel's moving weird ways, all of that type of stuff. If I'm hitting and things are glancing off, so if I'm hitting it in a weird way and instead of my hammer bouncing back up, my hammer's going tink, 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 it's doing stuff like that, I know that I need to change either my form or I need to change the way that I'm holding the steel. And I get to watch hours upon hours upon hours of that during the editing process, which definitely helps advance my forging technique a lot faster than someone who's not filming themselves and watching themselves do it for hours at a time. So it does make it to where I'm learning this stuff faster, but I want to absolutely know what my hammer does to the steel. So whenever I'm going through and I want to forge something in profile and it's going to be long, I want to know what I'm going to do to the steel here that's going to end up being what happens out here. I want to know, how can I planish this so that I can forge it with my 5-pound hammer and make it smooth, or I can forge it with my 1.5 pound planishing hammer and make it smooth. I want to know at what heat does the hammer put the bigger dents and the lighter dents into the steel, so that again, whenever I go through it, I planish and do all that stuff. It makes my life a lot easier. That's one of the ways that I figured out this whole texture thing, to be able to get that cool line in there, which is one of my favorite things about this, is having that cool transition line. I've done this texture a lot of times, but it's being able to get the texture but still have a nice clean spine, so you don't have a ton of dents all the way down here, but you have texture. And a lot of that comes with just practice and figuring out what's going to happen in the end result. So I wanted it to be nice and clean and smooth, but I wanted the texture, and a lot of that comes into just using the hammers, using all that stuff. Now, whenever I originally set out to do this, this was one of the things that I hit on in the video a little bit. I wanted to be able to utilize everything that I had in my shop. I knew a lot of people were going to order things. I knew a lot of people were going to get things shipped into them and then utilize that stuff. And then some people were going to use things that they already had. But I wanted this to be something that I could just go, cool, I'm going to grab that, I'm going to grab this, I'm going to grab this. I want to make a damn sword out of it, which was one of my biggest things. I knew that I was going to start it super late in the challenge. So I knew I couldn't sit there and wait for things to come in. Originally, I wanted to use a different steel. I wanted to use a few different things. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to do me. I'm going to do something that makes sense for me. And I'm going to treat this like I was making a sword and I didn't have a whole bunch of fancy stuff. The craziest tools that I used for this was my 2x72 and my little table saw right here. You know, I used a drill press, sure. But the rest of the stuff was just forging it and doing simple things. You could do everything that I did on this with a 1x30, a hand drill, and a forge is going to make it a lot easier, but you could do the guard with a torch. You didn't have to have a press, a power hammer. You didn't have to have a lot of that stuff. That was the goal with this. And I really wish that I could have done a full breakdown, 3-episode series, a build along with this so that y'all could actually do the whole entire process. One of the things that I am going to do is I'm going to do another blade that has a guard like this so that y'all can actually do it. This right here, being able to put something like this, you know, you can change the profile of the sides, but being able to do a bolster that wraps around the bottom of it would be really, really, really cool on things like buoys and cool like choppers and things like that, or something where you want it to have a guard, but you don't want it to mess with the overall profile of the blade. You could do a lot of stuff with this. You could actually take this, flip it around to where the guard is closer towards the blade and this piece is closer towards the handle. And you could actually profile this a little bit to where it had a little bit of a finger choil. You can do a lot of different things with this, and I'm going to do a few of them so that y'all can actually use them later. And then also, can you tell us some of your favorite things about your fellow YouTubers? Okay, so you can see where my wife's going with this. So first of all, what are we going to do with the next challenge? We've got a few different options. If you went and actually voted, you would see that they're going to have it's a post-apocalyptic where you actually use all reused materials. And then you have the Viking challenge and a sci-fi challenge. When it comes to my favorite challenge or something that I want us to absolutely do, double speed catching up. Oh yeah. What's up, Bill? So if it was my dream challenge, I want to do the post-apocalyptic one where we reuse materials. And of course, this might as well be post-apocalyptic. Again, because everything, wheelbarrow handle, angle iron, 5160 from a leaf spring material, and we were able to make this, which is absolutely cool. You know what I mean? So if I was to do one, it would be the post-apocalyptic challenge would probably be my biggest thing there. I want to do that. I've got a bunch of things floating around in my head, style-wise, that I want to do with that, and I'm kind of excited about that process. Hello, Arlen. my little daughter is deciding that she wanted to come out here and say hi. So I want to do that post-apocalyptic challenge. I really want to do that. But now when it comes to the Viking challenge, I'm cool with doing that too. I've made a sax, I've made things like that. I kind of want to make some cooler stuff and actually do runes and everything in the actual blade and do all that. But I want to do the post-apocalyptic one. Now, I would also be cool with the sci-fi. I think that's going to be pretty cool. But I'm pretty sure the Faraway Forge, old King, that he would probably knock us out of the park, seeing how he did the whole cyberpunk, the katana that lights up and stuff like that. That would probably be his jam. But I want to do that post-apocalyptic challenge. That is my wheelhouse. That is my game. I love that. And then if I was to break down some of the stuff that I liked in this challenge, dude, that spear that Phil made is absolutely crazy. The one that's like all the spikes at the end of it and everything like that, that right there was absolutely nuts. If y'all haven't watched that video, you need to. He's a funny as hell YouTuber. He makes a lot of jokes and does all that stuff. Awesome dude. You need to go check out his stuff. His, of course, in the video where I made this, links for his channel are in the description of that. So you can go check that out. You can see it in the voting link, all that stuff. But I think that a lot of people did really awesome stuff here. Did y'all check out the one where he like patinaed all of the fittings and like left all that turquoise patina all over the handle and everything like that? That was really cool. Now, one of the things that made me again happier with what I did here, one of my biggest pet peeves for a katana, and I was talking about the handle there, is I don't like how bulky katana handles are. I think that it's too much because, for one, you got to have the hidden tang, so the handle itself is going to be bigger than that, and then you got to wrap it in the Stingray, and then you got to wrap it, do the Ito wrap, and all that stuff, and then on top of that, whenever you do the fold over on the sides, it's even thicker. Some of those, you're sitting there holding, and you're like, God dang, like the handle is way bigger than the blade. So you have some of them where you see this big bulky handle, and then the blade is like either narrower or the same size as it. And I like everything to flow and be sleek. It's the reason why, again, I did my handle this way instead of the way that you typically do like a katana handle. But whenever I was going through all the videos, I'm sitting there looking at some of their stuff going, y'all are crazy. Just doing the wrap that I did here, this is a very simple version of their wrap. That had my hands burning. The fact that they did some of their handles and they sat there and they did that Ito wrap, some of them did that wrap 2 to 3 times. You won't hear about that in their videos. They're not going to tell y'all that they did it like 2 to 3 times on their some of their fittings. They did them multiple times. Some of their wraps and all that stuff multiple times. That's a pain in the ass. Like the amount of tension that's on your hand, because you have to keep all this tight as you're going through it. So you're wrapping it, you're pulling it. There are clamps that you can put on it, but sitting there wrapping it and pulling it, wrapping it and pulling it, just to realize that like you do your whole entire handle and then like right here it's the wrong direction or something like that, and you got to unwrap all the way to there and then rewrap it. Dang, that would suck. Luckily, I did this all one direction, and I only had to do it one time, so it wasn't that bad. But it is like 13 inches of wrap, which was a pain, but not as bad as what they had to do. Not sure my 1x30 flat pattern deep enough to get across the blade and make the tapers. Well, I mean, technically, you could. If you actually change the platen on your 1x30, you can do a lot of different things with it. If you haven't done the platen extension to where it actually goes from the base all the way up to where the top wheel is. If you look at some of mine, that's the way that I have it set up. So like, I'm going to show y'all my platen real quick on my 1x30. I know some of y'all have seen this. Some of y'all haven't seen this because I did this video an absolute, a long time ago. I'll pull this belt off of here. Okay. So this is my platen that's on my 1x30. It goes all the way to where the wheel is right here. So I've got that long platen on here. And that lets me, I can still track the belt off the side, do all that stuff. But typically, these little guys come with a platen that's only about 3.5–4 inches. And I said, screw that. So I went ahead and made this longer one. It's still adjustable. I can still do a few things to it. But that right there was a game changer for this 1x30. having this much real estate to utilize on here, that was a big thing. And this is just a piece of 1 inch wide, 1/8 inch mild steel. And it works like an absolute champ. And yeah, and horizontal, especially because I use that primarily for sharpening. There's all my sharpening belts and strops and all that stuff. So that's pretty much just used for sharpening at this point. And it's a lot easier if you're going to be working with it to be able to pull it across that way, as opposed to sitting there and you're sharpening this way. I like to be able to look down at it and see my burr develop, because again, the belt's going away from me. So as I'm sharpening it and doing my thing, all I got to do is, just like if we were on the 2x72, but even easier, all I've got to do is just rock and keep it flat. So just like you're going through and you're sharpening on stones, and you can keep that same angle. It's real easy if the blade is like this versus if the blade is like this or the blade is like this. It's a lot easier to be able to keep on the same plane and same angle as you come across right there. That's the reason why it's as tall as it is. It's pretty high up. That belt sits about right here, and I can just sit there and I can see straight down when my bird starts to develop, and it makes it a lot easier to be able to utilize that 1x30 for that. Now, they make all kinds of stuff to where you can use a 2x72 for it, but I don't feel like going through and buying all the belts for that. I've got like 60 belts of each grit of like 600, 800, 1,000, and then of course the strops and everything. So I don't need that. You know, I can use a 600 grit belt on that for like 6 months worth of sharpening. And I use Pro Sharpening Supply. They're the people that supply me with the belts and everything like that. So if you're using a 1x30 and you want the different belts and you want the leather strop, you want all that stuff, just prosharpeningsupply.com. Put it in your search and just order the stuff from them. They're not a sponsor or anything like that, but you know, they have hooked me up with belts. They didn't ask for me to review anything. They didn't ask for me to do any of that. They just said thank you for using our stuff and gave me some stuff, which is really cool. But if you're going to do it, their belts are really, really, really nice for sharpening, because where the seam is to connect the belt into its loop, the seam is really, really, really flat. So whenever you're sitting there and you're sharpening, you're not going thunk, 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 thunk every single time the belt comes across that seam. You're sitting there jumping on a like 600, 800, 1,000 grit belt. You know how much of a pain that is whenever you have it on your 2x72 and you could feel that belt seam come across your platen. It's a pain. This, you don't really have that. I really like that for that reason. Now, let's see here. Let's see what you got here. Blade Sam Towns. Blade for Sam Towns buoy build off and the vermiculite now. Nice. Yeah, definitely do that. Now, the reason why I originally did the horizontal one is because I had two 1x70 or 1x30s. So I had one that was vertical, one that was horizontal, and I would use one so that I could go through and grind in bevels, and then I would use one just for sharpening. So one primarily used like 36, 60, 120, you know, all the way up to like 220 grit belts. I used the vertical 1x30 for that, and then all the sharpening happened on the other one. And that was the reason why I did that, so that it was really easy for me to use this one for this one, use that one for this one. Then whenever I got my 2x72, I didn't really need the one with that was, you know, vertical. And I ended up giving that to a fellow knife maker. So what do you think about Mini Blade Challenge? I think that'd be really cool. If y'all didn't see Brian B-Cone Knives, he did his samurai sword, his little katana is like that long, and I absolutely love it. Like I want to do one of those now. That was a really cool little build. I mean, it's seriously like this big, and he's like cutting through like 1 inch rope with it and everything. So it was nuts. Other choice is 3 inch wide. Yeah, handheld belt sander. So my one issue with that using the handheld belt sanders is if you don't put a plate or something like that on it that raises the plate up, you can't really use it very well into plunge lines. So it's like, does it work to do its job? Yes, but you can't get crisp plunge lines off of those handheld belt sanders. And I made a 2x42, I think it was. I keep forgetting whether it was a 48 or 42. I think it was a 42. It might have been a 48. But my first 2-inch wide belt grinder was using a variable speed Makita angle grinder that had like a wooden wheel that I lathed so that I could actually go through, and it was crowned a little bit, made it to where the belt centered real easily. And then I used skateboard wheels and bearings for the 2x48. I used skateboard wheels on the actual platen and everything like that, and that worked out real well. But areas where it kind of caught up a little bit was where the platen was. So I originally set it up to where the platen was just welded to the face of it, and I ended up cutting that stuff off and made a platen that I could actually move and do everything like it. Skater die. If you look in the other shop, I've got a lot of skate stuff, a lot of it. Whenever I first started this channel, I was actually I was going to be showing you all how I made longboards and skateboards and all that stuff, but we ended up going the knife direction. But I still have a lot of decks and a lot of my own skate stuff. So 3-inch wide platen wore out anyway. Was gonna make a new one, stainless restaurant countertop. That would actually be pretty cool. That would actually work really well. I've been watching for 20 minutes. Just wanted to say hi. What's up, Jeff? Hi. So, and then grew up in with Nash Nightmare. Yes, yeah. My first skateboard was a Nash. Of course, I grew up around Paul Peralta and all the Christian Hosoi and Tony Alva, and I've actually got to hang out with a lot of them. One of the jobs that I had before, I work as an operations manager for an RV dealership. Prior to that, I worked for a company called Zoomies. I was one of their managers, and I got to go and hang out with people from the Tony Alvas and the Dogtown guys and Z Boys and everything like that. It was really cool. I got to snowboard with them, hang out, chill, and they're super awesome dudes. I really enjoyed that aspect of that job, just being able to hang out with people that I grew up thinking were absolutely awesome. But so when it came down to, again, all of this stuff, one of my favorite things about my channel is a lot of the stuff that I use here, it's not fancy. You could say my 2x72 is fancy. Yes, it is. But it's not as fancy as like all the ones that you can get nowadays. It's still a very basic 2x72. It's belt driven. It's not direct drive. It has no VFD. I don't have a way to adjust the speed on it, reverse it, any of that stuff. It's very simple. It just does its job, and it's a nice tool. But really, everything else is like Harbor Freight stuff. How's the leg doing? It's doing a lot better. Again, all it is right now is just a bandage with some stereo strips underneath it. I've got to make sure and stay off of it. My doctor said that she was going to whoop my butt if I ended up tearing it open. So she took the stitches out on Friday. She told me that she really would prefer to take them out like Tuesday or after Tuesday, but she was going to be out of town. So she went ahead and took them out on Friday, and she was like, all right, you're not allowed to do like anything. You can maybe walk if you want to walk, but don't do anything else. Don't carry anything. Don't climb anything. Don't do any of that, because there's still a chance that I could take so where the actual cut is, the bottom, like the third was having a difficult time sealing itself and healing. So she's worried that part right there is going to split back open. So I just got to be careful so I don't have to end up getting more stitches. What's up, Jeff Jones? A Texas skater? Did you? Hey, I've got friends. I got friends that can do like tray flips. all kinds of stuff in cowboy boots. You'd be surprised. We would do games of skate in the store. I can say all that stuff now because I don't work for them anymore. But we'd like move all the racks out, and we just do like a game of skate in the actual shop and everything. That was pretty cool. So yes, I got friends that can hard flip, do dolphin flips, all that type of stuff in cowboy boots, man. You'd be surprised. Now it sucks because you wear your cowboy boots out super fast, flicking it across the grip tape. So how'd you end up with the? Yes, it was that guy. This little Harbor Freight hatchet right here. This little guy right here still has my blood on it because I'm not going to take that off until it ends up wearing itself off. I've had this little Harbor Freight hatchet for like, I don't know. How long has Harbor Freight been open as a business? Like a while. I think I've had this for like 10 years. And it had to have been roughly around whenever Harbor Freight first opened in my town. And I had just sharpened it like 2 minutes before going through and breaking that stuff down. And it is still, yeah, you can still shave with it. And I would just suggest that if you're going to sharpen your hatchet, you don't sharpen it hair shaving sharp. Because if this flings out of your hand, comes down, hits the ground, and flings back into your ankle, which it took this whole entire section right here, went straight into my ankle in between if you look at your ankle, there's a like tendon that goes around the outside of your ankle, and then of course there's like your Achilles tendon. It went right in between those, just whoop, and bled like a son of a gun. But yes, it made a nice clean cut. They made me explain this to them a couple of times because they were sitting there going, that's the cleanest cut I've ever seen somebody get with something like an axe or a hatchet. So yes, it cut straight, smooth, clean through everything. And yeah, there was no jaggedness or anything like that. It was ridiculous. If you follow me on Facebook, I actually posted pictures of the actual thing that happened. So we do have that on there. Let's see here. The little super glue was still let up real quick, right? Hey, I'll tell you right now, Harbor Freight is every maker's best friend. Okay? Like I've been using Harbor Freight stuff for the longest time. You know, I'm not a super wealthy person. I got to make my things work with how I work it. And I've got certain tools. Now, there's certain tools that are like your name brand things because you have to absolutely depend on them to do what they need to do all of the time. But I'm not your typical Milwaukee, Snap-on guy. I work with a lot of guys that are that. I work with guys who have enough finance with Snap-on to like, there's people with like college debt, okay? College debt. And then you have the guys that are like, screw college. I'm going to be a tech or mechanic. And they have Snap-on debt. Biden needs to do a Snap-on debt relief. That's what he needs to do instead of the college thing. Let's see here. Do that on the topic of using what you have. Way more interested than watching people using perfect metals, perfect blades. Yeah, dude, Dennis's silver katana was absolutely crazy, man. Hate to love his art too perfect. However you spell his name, he's got a good. I gotta have ADHD. Is meticulous with his finish. Yeah, whenever I tell people that want to get into knife making, the first thing I tell them is buy the bare essentials. Just get what you need to be able to do it. Don't go all crazy. Don't start off right off the bat with a 2x72. Don't start off with all that crazy stuff. just literally get the things that help you make a knife. And then if you decide, damn, that was awesome, I had a blast, then start collecting the things that you need. But I feel sorry for so many people that are like, I kind of want to get into knife making. They go and they spend like $3,500 or like $5,000, and then they make like their first three knives, and they hand sand and then hand sand and then hand sand, and they're like, screw that. I'm never doing that again. I hate hand sanding knives. I don't want to make knives. And then they've got to try and sell the stuff. Now, the cool thing is, if you do have a 2x72, you can pretty much sell it for almost what you spent on it. Because if you post that thing on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, you post an anvil, you post any of your equipment, you're going to have like 12 people trying to buy it in like the first 5 minutes. If I put my 2x72 on Marketplace right now, it would be sold before I went to sleep. So there's that. But I didn't buy mine until I decided that I needed a tool to make my process faster. I had my 1x30s, they did their job, but for me to be able to put out content and do everything that I needed to do without filming huge long sections of me grinding blades and doing all that stuff, I knew that I needed a 2x72 to make the process faster. I needed a 2x72 to make the filming a lot easier, because trying to film around a small 1x30, you can't get really good angles. You can't get your lighting to work really well. So for me, the tool made sense, so I bought the tool. But I always feel sorry for people who think that they want to get into a hobby and then they dump all the money into it before they've actually tried the hobby and decided that this is what I want to do. It's something that, just be smart about it. I'm not the guy to tell you what your budget is. You know what your budget is. But if you're going to get into this, start small, then work up to the things that you need. I haven't needed a press or a power hammer to this point. Again, part of that's because my process is still getting used to the hammer skills, getting used to the hammer technique, getting used to what an anvil does to steel, what hammers do to steel, what parts of my anvil are great for, all of that stuff. I wanted to get used to all of that, which I'm still getting used to. One of the things that I really plan on working on now that it's finally getting cool is doing my chef's knives. I want to be able to forge some really cool stuff and do some unique blacksmith knives. If you know what a blacksmith knife is, typically, it's got the blade, you forge out a long rat tail, you fold that back in, and it ends up becoming the handle. I've got a few things that I'm going to be doing with blacksmith knives that are going to be forged like my integrals. So it's going to have that same flow and everything, but it's going to be something that has an integral bolster into it, and kind of it's going to be cool. If you ever look up an X-ray knife, so just type it in X-R-E, I think it's R-H-E-A, so X-R-H-E-A knife. You're going to see kind of what I'm talking about, but I'm going to be doing some really cool chef's knives with that whole flare, and then I'm going to be doing a couple of chef's knives that have that flare and actually have handle material on certain sections of it as well. So there's going to be some unique stuff coming out that once I can actually spend a whole bunch of time in the forge just perfecting it, we're going to have a lot of that stuff coming up. Let's see what your comments are here. I made a hydraulic press before I made my first knife. Okay, to be fair, there are actually a bunch of people that have done that. The cool thing about knife making tools is you can use them in several other crafts. You don't have to just use them for knife making. You want to get into building really cool fences and gates and all that stuff. Being able to have a press to do certain things is really, really cool as well. Too deep by then, walk away. So I made a YouTube channel and learned to trade. Yep, I know how that feels. Sounds like okay, let's see here. Sounds like you told your wife I need a bigger grinder, so you can see it on camera. You don't need to call me out like that, Kevin. That might be the way that I pitched it, but I did need a bigger grinder. flat hammer has a round edge. How am I supposed to forge and define a ricasso? So the when it comes to forging in a ricasso and all that stuff, now, are you talking about forging it in your plunge line, or are you talking about doing like an integral? I need to know what you mean by that. So this thing's getting a little dusty. So if you're going through and you're forging, like if you're wanting to do a integral, of course, that's one of the things to learn. But if you're wanting to try and forge in your plunge right here, what you want to do is get into an area where, and this is kind of my personal preference, this isn't something that you have to do. So I've got a couple of hammers that are radiused to just like the side of my anvil is right here. Right there, if I can go. How do you do this? Anyways, lengthwise. I've got a couple of anvils where the edge of the hammer is radius just like that. So let's take this guy right here. So this is from John Norwood. He's actually in the challenge. He's the one that did the 1,000-layer ladder Damascus katana. So the edge of this is the same profile, okay? So it's got the same round as the edge of my anvil right here. So whenever I'm coming in and I'm forging in that plunge line, I'm making sure, for one, that I'm not swinging from back here going think, think, because I'm not sitting there trying to move a bunch of material. So I'll come in and I'll forge in that line. But you'll see me sometimes, I'll come in with something like a cross peen or a straight peen, and I'll come in and I will pull the steel down. So I leave it thick here for a reason. I'll come in and I'll forge my bevels from about here out. I'll pull this down just a little bit, but I'll forge them thinner out here. This material will still be pretty thick right here, and then I'll pull that heel down exactly where I want it to be, whether I've got to forge it this way or this way, whether I need to move the material this way or move the material down. That's one thing. But if you're trying to just get those crisp plunge lines, a lot of it is focus on your hammer hits, getting them consistent, and going from both sides. You can't just forge it down from one side. In order to keep it centered, you got to go even amount on each side until you can center it. And then you'll get used to what you can do to be able to place your steel on your anvil and shift your edge over depending on where you hit it. I've got a couple of videos that I'm going to be doing, actually teaching that whole entire process. And I'm probably going to do a couple of live streams the same way. Let's see here. Yes, she can absolutely read these. She is, in there probably watching this whole entire thing, reading all of this. Bought a splitter, forged. Yeah, so Steve, the guy that actually sent me a big chunk of ladder Damascus, which I'll be showing y'all whenever I'm forging like a huge thick bar of ladder Damascus into an integral chef knife. But he did the same thing, log splitter into his forge. Let's see here. Yeah, plunge line, face of the hammer has a circle. Okay, so how would you do it? Hey, what's up, Jason? How would you do it if your face was round? So you will see a lot of that. There are a bunch of rounding hammers out there to where the face is round and the rounding section is round. So your flat side is round, just like a stick one of these. So round like that. How would you go through and take that and pull it down? I don't want to tell you to modify your hammer, but if you want to go ahead and be able to do that and make your life easy, don't be afraid to buy another hammer for that specific goal. I've got several hammers that I use for different things, but I've also taken other hammers and made the hammer that I needed. This was not what this hammer looked like whenever I bought this hammer. But I wanted a hammer that was a straight peen and a cross peen, so that whenever I'm going through and I'm pulling material to certain spots, I can just pull it, move it, do all that stuff with one hammer. And I actually radiused this right here, both sides, to again match an area on the anvil. It's on, yep, this side over here. So where my hardy hole is, right here, it's just on the side there. And that lets me stretch material real well and do everything, especially if I'm trying to do my integral bolsters and all that. Being able to have this, the same profile, so whenever I'm coming down, the anvil is doing its job by deforming the steel on the other side, and this is doing its job from the top. Just like if you were going to use a press, you're getting that pressure from both sides, and it's making it nice and even. Well, I wanted to kind of replicate that with just a hammer and anvil. So I wanted to be able to replicate that process with just the hammer and anvil and make my life a little bit easier. But don't be afraid to just take another hammer and make a rounding hammer out of it. I do stuff like that with all kinds of different hammers, but also if that's the rounding hammer you have and you don't want to buy another one, I would just say modify a less expensive one. Go to Harbor Freight, get yourself a little mini sledge, and get after it with one of those and just change the profile to what makes it easy on you. The cool thing is, typically blacksmith hammers aren't that expensive. What I mean by that is they're not like $700. Think about it this way. Blacksmith hammer, if it costs you $200, just make a couple of knives, you got all your money back. And then let's see here. I do have a huge coil spring from a railroad engine, just for making hammers, axes, etc. The log splitter that's moving around. See, if you could make your own hammer, that would be absolutely cool. Whenever I get a press, one of the things that I will be making is my own hammers. I see a lot of the hammers that I purchased and everything like that, and I've got a few hammers that I want to make personally that are a certain way, and I can't wait to get a press to be able to actually do that. I know my first few hammers are going to absolutely suck, but if I can get them done the way that I want them done, they're going to be great hammers, and I'm most likely going to use them mostly, but eventually I might end up selling them as long as they're a hammer that really, really, really works well. There's a couple of guys out there that just make absolute wonderful hammers. Wahlberg Forged is the guy I got my first hammer from. And then, of course, the hammer that a lot of y'all see that y'all are like, damn, whenever I'm swinging it, is this guy right here. This little Thor's hammer. This is a very big hammer. This is a 5-pound rounding hammer. Got this from Elijah over at Fire Creek Forge. That's his little mark right there. But I originally saw him. He did a video on the size of his hammer and why he uses it. And I watched that whole entire video and I was like, you know what? That makes a ton of sense. Yes, it's a big hammer, but if you just get used to swinging it, your body just gets to where it works within a hammer like this. It's got a short handle on it. You can do a lot of work. I've planished steel with this 5-pound hammer. But whenever you get something like this, that big round, and you're trying to move steel, and you drop a 5-pound, pretty much a sledge on that thing, and you're just sitting there forging, you move a lot of steel pretty quick, which is really helpful for me because I do a lot of 5160. I do a lot of forging by hand, which of course y'all have seen. And having a big, massive hammer to be able to do everything that you need to do is awesome. Whenever I get down to some of the other hammers that I use, this right here, my straight peen from Two Bastards, right there. Love this one. This one's actually really nice for whenever I need to go in and do the bolsters. I literally got this hammer from them just to be able to do integrals. And this was, I was waiting for them to send me this. I made that hammer that had both the straight and the cross peen. Again, this right here is the exact hammer that I use for that. So I can come down and do my integrals, be able to forge that area right there. And then it's got a flat side of the rounding hammer right here. I can flatten it back out, smooth it back out, flip, do my thing, flatten it back out. That hammer right there is absolutely awesome. They do a great job with making their hammers. And I got to pick exactly the handle length and everything that I wanted. It was really cool. Let's see here. So one of the drifts that I have is, this is something that y'all get to see me do a few times. So if you know what this is, that this is the drift that's going to be for the tomahawks that I'm going to be making. So that's going to be really cool. I purchased that a little while back. I've got a few tomahawks that I'm going to be doing. I've got the test one that's going on this awesome handle right here. So the first tomahawk's going to go on that. That's going to be absolutely beautiful. But we'll see how all that goes whenever I actually get to that point. Elijah, awesome. That'll help him a lot. Ideas for buoy making. Elijah is awesome when it comes to buoys. He's awesome when it comes to a lot of stuff. He's the one that actually got me into working with 52100. If you've watched a lot of his videos, you know 52100 is his jam. People have 80 CRV2. People have 8670. People have certain steels that are like their steel. 52100 is something that I wanted to get into for a little while. He forges a lot with it, and I'll probably start using it more whenever I get my heat treat oven. But for right now, I can do what I got to do with it. How do you keep from pissing off your neighbors? So the best part about my neighbors is the ladies to one side of me. They think that everything that I do is really, really, really cool. And I try and keep the noise down whenever, I'm not out here forging whenever it's 1 o'clock in the morning, stuff like that. I'm being respectful for my neighbors and everything with kids, but luckily, the couple of ladies that live next to me on one side, they're retired. Both their husbands passed away. They did a whole bunch of machining and stuff like that. Their husbands did, so they had big shops that made a lot of noise and all of that stuff. They had lathes, they had everything. So to them, what I do is really, really interesting because it's like, I'm just an extension of their family. So they have that, and then and my kids go and like hang out with them and play with their dogs. And then on the other side, that same thing, lady that I'll go through and fix her lawnmower if her lawnmower is broken. I'll mow her yard. If her yard's getting a little tall and I'm doing my yard, I just mow her yard and edge it and do all that stuff because that's how we are with neighbors. If they're over here and they need their stuff done, I fix their stuff and do all of that. And they just let me do what I'm going to do. And the lady that lives behind me is my aunt's, the woman that married into my family. It's her mom. So I could just be out here doing whatever the hell I want. If I wanted to forge at 1 a.m., it'd be perfectly fine. They wouldn't care. But I don't do that just because I'm not disrespectful and I want to maintain good relationships with everybody. Let's see here. What's up, Brian? What's going on? Hey, let me tell you something. That whole katana that you made is awesome. I was talking about it earlier. And I love that thing. I want to make a small katana. I kind of want to do a small katana and like a small like hatchet just to have for like the whole like ankle thing. I want to make a small hatchet as well. So I think I'm going to end up doing that. But I really, really, really loved that katana that you did. And the fact that you were able to do like the different cut tests and things with it was just absolutely hilarious. That thing was awesome. And you knocked that out quick, man. So was that really did you like time yourself? Did you just do it in one day? I mean, I know you said it was a 5-hour build, but was that like you were just like, man, I got 5 hours. I gotta make a sword. I thought that was so awesome. I need to challenge myself to do that now. Um, so Jeff, I need to actually use my carbon fiber. So if y'all didn't know this, Brian, he actually does all kinds of different things, but I've got my carbon fiber right here. This is going to be going onto one of the chef's knives that I'm going to be working on. I'm really excited about using these. So uh, let's see here. If y'all don't know, Brian, the guy that's on here, Brian Cohn, he was in part of the challenge. Y'all need to go check out his video and go subscribe to him for one. Forged in Fire style. Yeah, so I've been thinking about doing like a Forged in Fire style video, but like a realistic, 100% realistic version of it. No, like waiting overnight, all that type of stuff. I'm thinking about doing that where I get a profile that I'm going to try out and something that I haven't made before, and then try to actually forge the whole entire profile and everything, forge it, heat treat it, and do it in that first segment of time, and then do the handle, and then do the test where you chop antler. I'm not going to probably do an ammo can or a 50 gallon like drum can or something like that. But I am going to do like the tip test in the wood, see if you can snap off the tip, and then do the antler chop and do like a rope slice after that. I don't know exactly what style of knife I'm going to do, but I am going to end up doing one of those challenges just to challenge myself and see what I can do. And I'm going to end up doing a poll because one of the things that I can do is I can do that challenge live. So whenever I'm doing the whole entire forging, heat treat, all that stuff, I could do like a 3-hour live where I'm doing that whole entire thing, and then I could do the same time segment for the handle and just do it live, and then I could do the test live and do all of that instead of doing it in a video. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if people want to hang out with me for that long, but I could do that. Day and a half start to finish because iSpace aren't a tool, right? And then ABS journey cut test, Forged in Fire style. Yep. I think that would be absolutely awesome. And then I hate clocks. Well, okay, so yeah, I'm not a big fan of the whole time of myself to do things either, but I know that I could do it within the time constraints because I've actually forged an entire profile on a 1-hour live. I think it was like my second or third live that I did, and I was just sitting there. We were talking about a few things, and someone was like, "Hey, we're gonna forge a knife," and I was like, "Screw it! I already had the forge lit." Because what I was doing was I originally was just in that video gonna show the difference between what my lights do to the steel whenever I bring it out of the steel or bring it out of the forge, and people think that the steel's too cool whenever I'm forging, but really it's the lighting that I have to have in here that messes with the camera, that makes it look like the steel's colder than it is whenever I'm forging. I was just showing that, and someone was like, "Hey, we're gonna forge a knife," and I said, "Screw it." Tossed it back in the forge, and we forged an EDC, and I did that in an hour. So that was with handle profile and everything. So I would get in on that challenge. Hey, we need to talk about that for real. That would be really cool to do that as a challenge with like 4 of us. Yep, I think that would be really cool, and it would be really easy to do because if we pick the timing and everything like that, and then we do it live, people can literally pop back and forth between the lives and do all that stuff. That'd be so cool. I want to do that now. So just wait for the steel to heat a lot. Inspect before putting it back in. Yep, think of the next 60. Yep. But yeah, man, I love doing stuff like that. And one of the things when it comes to time constraints, I keep telling myself that I'm going to start my builds like for the challenges and all that stuff way in advance. I'm telling myself, you know what? This time, I know the challenge is going to start here. I'm going to start day one making a thing. And then I don't do that. I don't do that at all. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this, then I'm going to make that, then I'm going to make this. And wait, we have 2 weeks left? I better make something. That a lot of the time that happens to me when it comes to these challenges. Dude, I was supposed to be building a chicken coop for my kids when you went live. I'm going to blame you. Yes, do it. Just be like, hey, I was going to do it, but then I had to participate in this thing, and he was making me talk. Yeah, it's hard because, so it's one thing to just do YouTube and all that stuff, but the hardest part about doing the challenges for me is putting out regular content and then still having a full-time job where I have to manage people and do all that stuff, make sure everybody's doing their thing, and do all of this, still put out normal content, so still make builds, do all that stuff, and then still also focus on a challenge. And what ends up happening with me is I'm typically gonna make something that's slightly different than what a lot of people are gonna do, and thinking through the process, and of course trying something that I wouldn't say that nobody's done, but trying something that you can't watch a video and try to replicate. So whenever I did the guard like this with the angle iron, there wasn't a video that I could watch. So what I did was I just kind of looked at how people were doing some of I don't know whether it's the Habaki or the Suba or whatever, the little tools that they were doing to be able to bend that copper around this and get that profile to do this piece right here on theirs. I was like, okay, I can do something like that, and then I can forge it and make the shoulders square and do stuff. And it was just not having the ability to watch somebody else do it and go, oh, I can use my tools that I have in the shop to do that. Being the person that just does it and has to figure it out, that's a pain in the butt. But it was worth it in the long run to be able to do it, so now I can replicate it, and now y'all know how I did it. Good talking. Hey, have a great day, Brian. And for real, reach out. We need to talk about that whole Forge and Fire Challenge thing. Don't let him lie. Design 12 knives. Starts 2 completely. That's a different knife. Oh, man. She's coming in hot. Dang, that's exactly what happens. End up something way cooler. Yep. And that's typically the way that I do my stuff. And then she's proving she needs it. Yeah, she does read the comments. So when it boils down to it, again, it's not that I just want to be unique in the actual challenge. It's that a lot of the times I want to give y'all something that fits the category, but is like something that I want to use, something that I think is badass, that I want to actually use, that I want to do stuff with. And typically, whenever I make something, I'm gonna use it and have fun with it and make it a thing that I can go out right now, take this thing and just cut stuff up. And I'm not gonna be like, did I screw up this thing? No. I want to be able to have so much fun with it, and I want to be able to use it for a long time. So the difference between me and a lot of other knife makers, and this is not a good thing for a knife maker. I was a knife collector for 20 years. Okay, I've been collecting knives and all that stuff for a long time. So being a knife maker a lot of my crazy custom builds, like a lot of the crazier stuff that I make, I keep those. They're mine. Like I'll still make, like I'll recreate certain things and I'll make EDCs and I'll make some stuff. And if somebody says, hey, I'm going to give you this much money for that particular knife, and it is an amount of money where I'm like, start thinking about it, I will sell it to them. So if someone was like, hey, I'll give you X amount for that sword, I would be like, I don't want to sell it, but I will sell it. But if I'm not going to sell it, I'm going to have a blast using it. I've got plenty of my knives that I've made on this channel that I go and I trim branches off of trees with. I'll make fires with. I'll make feather sticks, do all that stuff with them. They get used regularly. And I love that aspect of it because it really lets me have fun with the actual knife. I don't just want to make art. I want to make something that's useful, has a purpose, and it exists. And y'all will see that a lot whenever I talk about knife making on my channel. If you're going to do something within this craft, make it worth a damn. Make it actually be something that is useful. Make it a tool. Make it to where you can chop stuff with it, cut stuff with it, have good edge retention, and make it a useful thing. Don't just make it to make it. If I make something, man, I want to use the hell out of that. Whenever I make something that's cool, I want it to have the heat treat that I want. I want it to be able to chop through a 2x4. I want it to be able to shave after that. I want it to be just a badass thing that I think is absolutely cool and something that I can use. I mean, unless you're fighting a bear, there's not going to be much use for this thing right here. But let's say I needed to defend my house. Do you think somebody would try and attack you if you had this in your hand? Do you think somebody would try and attack you if you had this in your hand? Probably not. Now, to be fair, if somebody came to my house, if they made a 300 blackout version of this or a 9mm version of this, that's what I'd be fighting with. But you know what I mean. So, anyways, other than that, yes, it's one of those things where, again, I just want to make stuff that I have fun with and that I want to use and that I plan on going out and just having a blast with. You know what I mean? I don't want to make something that is only able to be used on like fruit and stuff like that, unless it's a fruit knife. Then I'll use that on fruit. Let's see here. Inspiration. I love your stuff you make. Simple tools. Yep, that's my goal too. And one of the things that Nisha has talked about a few times is trying to do a challenge where we just use simple tools. So a challenge where there's no presses, there's no power hammers, there's no mills, mini mills, lathes, CNC machines, all that stuff. None of that. It's a challenge where, you got to use your hands. You gotta forge it out. You got to do some stock removal, things like that. You can use a 2x72 if you need to, but there's none of the big crazy things. If you want to make Damascus, you got to forge it by hand. I've done it. I've done several Damascus knives, and I have no press, no power hammer. So it's just making it all by hand. Let's see here. Ninja challenge. Everyone makes a ninja sword. You make a space ninja sword used by an orc against elves lording over the rest of the galaxy. I love that. And yeah, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Although I will tell you this, the difference between the two is me personally, I've been stabbed by knives. I don't like getting stabbed by knives, and it's a lot faster than a lot of people think that it is, and it's a lot bloodier. Whenever you get into an actual knife fight or a fight where somebody has a knife and you realize that in like 5 seconds, you can literally have slices, cuts everywhere, and it goes through arteries, it goes through so many things. Like, and especially because most expensive wounds and everything are on your hands and they're around your wrist, they're around, different part of organs that are very hard to stop the bleeding on versus a bullet hole. So something like that. Let's see here. Bowie has leaf spring for the cutting edge, jackhammer bit for the spine. That's cool. Designed for abuse. That actually sounds really cool. Don't underestimate values of knife and yep. And a gunfight. Yep, correct. If you ever get a chance to actually read the story about Mr. Bowie himself, you'll realize that. And then I'm not manually filing a bevel. Neither am I. The people that do that, the people that manually that sit there and hand file bevels, I'll watch their shorts and their videos, and they're sitting there and they're hand filing a bevel, and some idiot in the comment section will be like, "Oh, you didn't forge that knife. You're not a real knife maker." Let me tell you something. If I had the the option to forge a knife or file a knife, I'm gonna forge the knife, because if you're filing a knife, for one, you're a badass. That takes a lot of work. Your hands are going to be sore. Everything's going to be sore. Everything. Just hand filing guards and stuff like that suck. You're going to sit there and tell somebody that just got done hand filing all of their bevels that they don't qualify as a knife maker. Yeah, you're dumb. Cut that out. I've been in a gunfight with a knife before. Yep. Same. Some can nail you with a good throw before you try aiming. I still wouldn't want to get into a gunfight though, whether I had a knife or not. I would just go the other direction. I think Dennis would get the shakes if he could use his press or rolling mill. Man, let me tell you something though. He has all the tools, so he uses those in his videos, but he's actually pretty good at forging. So I gotta give him credit for that. But if I had all the tools too, I would want to do that. But I'm more one of my favorite people that makes knives is Neil Kamamura. Because he does use his press and his power hammer and all that. But one of his philosophies whenever he first started making knives was that he was going to forge, like over 100 knives by hand. So he just sat there and he forged until he perfected his craft. It was a good stress relief for him because he had a lot of drama in his life. But one of the things that he did was he decided he was going to do it, and he sat there and he just forged knife after knife after knife after knife until he got it down like an art form. And me personally, that's what I want to do. I want to forge and use all the parts of my anvil, my hammers, and all that stuff, and get used to what hammers I need versus what hammers I don't need. Get used to just that particular craft. I don't really do blacksmithing, but because of my knife work, if I want to make a thing within blacksmithing, I'm confident what my hammer can do to the steel to move it to be able to make certain things. I just skipped the whole making the leaf petals and all that stuff and just went straight into knives. Bullet just a hole, knife can cut. Yes, that's the hard part about knives is, if you get shot right here, it can do a lot of damage, but it's still a hole. If you get sliced across here, it goes through a lot of things, and it's very, you got to stitch a lot of stuff back up. But yeah, still wouldn't want to get shot. It's called the Superman effect. Throw anything at someone, they will duck. Yes, they will. What is it? If you ever watched Active Self Protection, it's a YouTube channel. I think they call it the FIBSA, the fudge. I'm being shot at. So it's whoa, jeez, no. All of those things, those reactions that happen whenever people are getting shot at. That's the FIBSA. Let's see here. Try hand sanding whole yacht and prep for paint. Sometimes, yeah, you would never complain about hand sanding again. I still semi-complain about hand sanding, but I did auto body for a while. My main hammer that I use for planishing and everything like that. If you've done auto body, you've used one of these. I use this for planishing on my steel. And yes, That's an auto body hammer. Hey, and there's my dolly. So this is so old. You're working sheet metal, hand behind, working that sheet metal out. My auto body teacher, like long time ago, like 24, 25 years ago, he one of his things was using the least amount of Bondo possible. So if we wanted to do good body work, we had to metal work it to almost perfect before we ended up doing any type of filler. So that we're just skim coating it and you're barely doing anything. So yes, I did a lot of hand sanding. Whenever you're getting into auto body, the first thing you do is you become the sanding person, and you have to do all of the wet sanding, all the hand sanding, all of that stuff before you can kind of work your way into doing a lot of the other parts of that particular craft. You do a lot of hand sanding. And let's see here. That rolling mill makes it so much easier. The exact thickness, yes, it does. I really would love to have one of those tools. You're sanding your yacht. Poor you, our life. Sanding a yacht. He didn't say it was his yacht. He said sanding a yacht. Yes, and auto body techs do a absolute ton of hand sanding. So whenever I got into this, what made my life a little bit easier within knife making is the certain crafts that you have leading up to knife making. So doing auto body, figuring out how to put steel in areas that you want to do with hammer and dolly and things like that made it a lot easier, especially for doing things like welding. Because if you do auto body, you know, there's a lot of fiberglass stuff and ABS plastic stuff now, but whenever I did it in the 90s, it was, you know, there was still a lot of steel and things that you had to do and get used to. So you still had to do welding and everything like that. Of course, you still do welding in auto body now, but the difference is back then you would repair the thing. Nowadays, you replace the thing. You know, now if you get into a little fender bender, they take like the whole side of the car off and just put a new side on. They don't auto body it. They don't work it, do any of that stuff. They just, oh, you got a dent right there? Okay, cool. They take out all the stitch welds, all the pinch welds, all the everything, and they just put a whole new thing on there. And they're like, all right, we're good now. It's crazy. And then on top of that, when it comes to using my angle grinder and stuff like that, I did stonework for years. And at that point, you know, if you're doing stonework, whatever material you take off, you can't put back. So getting used to making nice, clean lines, smooth lines, things like that, things that were super symmetrical. You know, I had a lot of experience getting used to that. So that's one of the reasons why whenever I'm doing a lot of my blades and everything, almost all of that is just by eye. Doing the symmetry, getting everything even, being able to make nice, clean bevels without having some crazy tool. You know, there's no wave in the bevels. It's just crisp all the way through. There's no dips, divots. You would see it. You would see a different line change as we're going through if I had that. And a lot of that is just getting used to what my hands can do, removing material before I actually started doing this. And it helped my process a lot. I feel sorry for the people that want to get into knife making that have never really worked with their hands, because you have to then learn how your body does things, how to hold certain things, where your strength's at within your body. You know, you have to build up certain muscles, you have to build up certain muscle memory. You got to do a lot of that stuff if you haven't really used your hands very often to do crafts or do regular things. Then getting into this craft's kind of a pain in the butt, because you got to then learn how to move your body to do certain things, to replicate, you know, steps. It's something that it makes it a lot easier if you've worked with your hands in the past, because I wouldn't want to do it yet. Exactly how you think. Smartass. Yeah, I think we all are a little bit. Um, Make the knife you love, get a press, make the same knife with a cool pattern. Correct. And that's what I want to do. Kind of like my philosophy on success. Do what you love, success will follow. It really will. I would say, unless you like robbing banks, probably don't do that. You know, if your hobby is like robbing banks or like stealing cars, I'd suggest you get into a hobby because your success eh, kind of sketchy. But yes, within knife making, I'll tell you this: if you don't want to try and get rich off of it, this is the perfect craft for you. Can you make decent money making knives? Yes. If you start making knives and you want to get your name out there, should you make a YouTube channel? Nope. Do an Instagram, do a TikTok. Call it done. Uh, don't do YouTube. YouTube takes too long to build up the audience and get to a point to where you have a good following and it impacts your business. If you're going to get into knife making, go to shows, go to blade shows, go to knife shows, go to gun shows, and sell your stuff there. You're going to have way more success doing that, building your name within the community, than you are if you're going to do a YouTube channel or something like that. I do the YouTube channel because I love the education process. Whenever I was going into college, the whole point behind that was to become a teacher. Later on, I wanted to be an art teacher, not because, well, more or less because my art teachers were my biggest uh, pushers of me throughout my whole entire school career. My art teachers were the ones that were like, hey, you got talent, you need to do this. Hey, you got talent, you got talent. Push yourself here, push yourself here, push yourself here. And all the other teachers were just kind of like, just there. But the art teachers are the ones that had the biggest impact on my life and being able to do stuff like this. So I really appreciate them. Same thing with my auto body teacher and everything. And, my welding teacher and all those people that did all that stuff. They push you and help get you to use your talent to do certain things. And I love teaching people. So that's the whole reason why I do this. I don't make much money off of YouTube. I make enough to be able to pay me back for all the stuff that I do here, but it's not like you're making tons of money off of it. Yeah, within morals. My first fully forged knife started as a stock coil spring from my Jeep. Awesome. I love that. Not to mention any donations through YouTube. They take a huge cut. Yes, they do, but the YouTube does help within that. The nice thing about YouTube is whenever you have something like I have a member section that it's a few people that are on there and they're more part of the members to help support me than anything else. They're just there to do their thing. And of course, they do come out here. Jeff Jones is on there, of course. Jason Valet. There's a few people that Matt Rich that participate in that, and I talk to them on a regular basis. One of the cool things about being part of the members section is you can literally get me on the phone and call, or we'll do a video call, and we can just talk about what you're doing, your knife process, anything like that, and it's really cool. But they do take a portion of it, but it does still help. Luckily, YouTube has helped me continue doing this because even if I don't sell the knife, I make X amount of money off the video, and it makes my life a little bit easier when it comes to doing the hobby and teaching. Teachers got to get paid too. Dude, angle iron never looked so good. I agree. And it's just one of those things where, again, I enjoy just doing the whole teaching aspect of this. Whenever I first started YouTube, one of the things that I noticed were a lot of people that made knives on YouTube, they would still throw out a little bit of education here and there, but the easiest way to go viral on YouTube is to not talk during your videos. The easiest way to get, a lot of views, big success, make a lot of money on your their videos is if you don't talk and you just show the process. Because people just kind of want to live vicariously through it. They're not trying to learn the craft. They want to just be in an office building, watch the video because they think what you're making is cool. They don't really want to get into the craft. Uh, I had to change the attitude of, and thank you, Matt, and thank you, Jeff. You know, you can see the icon next to their name, but it's one of those things where I wanted to change how other YouTubers did this particular, process. I wanted people to branch out and do more educational. I wanted people to actually show you the reason why they're making certain decisions within their builds and doing stuff like that. Whenever I first started doing this, there were only a few knife channels, and if you wanted to learn how to do what they did, you would have to watch their time lapse and work your way through it and just try and figure it out in the process. And it's one of those deals where I wanted to kind of again change the mentality of other YouTubers and get them more into the educational side of this because they have a lot to teach. And I'm really happy because Dennis Tyrell Knife Works. He has his Triple T Thursday, and he started that because of my Shop Talk Tuesdays. And dude, could you imagine if Triple T Thursday was not a thing? You know, he has taught knife makers that have been doing knife making for years how to do new things, and I'm super pumped that I was able to help him change the direction and go that particular way with his channel. There's a lot of things, and there's other ways that people have started changing the way that they do their videos to make them more educational, break down the processes, which is awesome within this community. I think it's creating better knife makers, more knife makers that are actually more confident in what they do, and being able to tell people why you use a hammer a certain way. Not just go, hey, you need to go forge some flower petals. You need to forge 100 of those, and you'll be good at blacksmithing. No, you trying to learn what a straight peen hammer does to steel, what you should do with your anvil whenever you're pairing it up to certain hammers, trying to figure out how you're supposed to measure things, how you're supposed to do certain things, the real way to do heat treating instead of a generic way to do heat treating, actually understanding that there's recipes and certain things like that. There's just certain things that people need to be shown in depth, and that's what I've tried to do with my channel. And I know that a lot of y'all like it, and I think I really appreciate that. Seasonal stuff, I'm all ears, right? Just the opposite. I look for those who explain and show. Same, me too. And I kind of had to get out of the mindset of videos needed to be like 10 minutes long. Whenever I got out of that mindset, it was, I'm going to put all the education that I put into it. And if someone's like, hey, shut up and just put in work, I understand that they're not here to really learn what I'm trying to do. And they want me to stop talking and just watch me doing the process. And I get some people just learn visually. They don't want you to talk. But being able to actually understand why I'm doing what I'm doing it is a lot better than me just doing the thing and you having to suss it out, having to just sit there and figure out why the heck I'm doing certain things. And what ended up happening was whenever I first started doing the educational videos, people would ask me in the comment section certain things. So then I would start adding them into the videos and try to tailor it to what the most common questions were, which is where we're at now. Let's see here. Must be the only guy with an anvil on wheels. Well, my anvil's not technically on wheels, but it does have casters. One of the reasons why whenever you're watching me forge in the shop, you'll see my anvil kind of just like rotate, move around, is because it's not stuck to the ground. It likes to move. But for me, man, having all of this floor space right here, I need to be able to use this. I need to be able to take this guy over here, take my workbench area that has all those tools right there. I need to take that, move it around. So even that is on wheels for me. And it's get it out of your way so that you can work in your shop. It makes it a lot easier for me because I have to film. Um, sure appreciate you guys. Learned so much from you, Dennis, Walter. Walter's absolutely awesome. Walter Sorrells was actually one of the guest judges for the Samurai Challenge. I'm so happy he didn't compete because he would have whooped our asses. That is what he does is samurai swords, katanas, and things like that. He's like one of the experts on that. Tall, I've been on this stream all night. I know I need to actually, I think it's about time for me to go inside and eat some dinner or something like that. Jimmy DeResta, movable stand. Yeah, so Jimmy DeResta has a lot of cool stuff. He was actually, there was a lot of people at Makers Camp. If you haven't checked into that, Makers Camp happened, I think it was last weekend. And yeah, there was a lot of cool people there doing a lot of cool stuff. Steps on a spot. Yep. Wheels pivot, move around. Yeah, his is a little bit more technically fancy than mine. But I like having this stuff set up to where I can move it around. But guys, man, it has been almost an hour and 45 minutes. I think it is about time for us to go ahead and stop this thing and go ahead and do some other stuff. But again, I'm happy that y'all came here, and I'm so stoked that I was able to actually do this and make it this way and get it fully done and be able to actually use it and just have a blast with it, make it the way that I wanted to make, get out of my head and go, okay, you don't have to make a katana. You can make the sword that you want to make and call it done. I'm happy that I stuck to my guns and I made the thing that I wanted to make. See here, go hug your dog. I will. That's what I'm going to go do. Guys, y'all have an amazing night. Thank y'all for coming on here. Thank y'all for participating. The best part about these live streams are people who actually talk in the comment section. You can do that with the live streams so much better than if it's just a video that I release. I have so much more fun doing these live streams. Like, y'all, I need y'all to understand it. I love the interaction. I really, this is probably one of my favorite things that I've done since I've started YouTube is actually doing the live streams. I wish I would have started it earlier, and I'm happy that I'm doing it now because it's so much more fun to be able to actually be out here in the shop and talk to y'all and do these things. It's a blast. And as we get into these cooler months, now that I can actually be out here with the phone and all that, because I have to do this on my phone, not my camera, we will be doing some forging sessions and everything like that into the live streams because my phone won't overheat, and we're going to have a blast. But guys, Dennis asked a question. He thought I was telling him what to do. Sometimes that happens with us makers because we don't get the context of your question, and I'm sorry that he took it that way. On the low side, Scott, forging sit on the ground. Yeah. Forging sitting on the ground. I've seen some people overseas doing that in like flip flops, but I've seen some crazy stuff with the forging. There's a couple of guys. One of them lived in Finland, and he did that. He like buried like all of his stuff in the ground. It was pretty cool. All right. I am going to stop reading. Guys, y'all have an amazing night. Stay safe out there. I'll catch y'all next time. Have fun.